We've spent a lot of time discussing NHL trade rumors. In today's video, we're going to do some NHL trade predictions. Many of the top players that have been rumored to be on the move throughout the course of the offseason have yet to be traded. Many NHL insiders feel there's still a lot of activity that could be seen before the start of the 25-26 regular season, and of course in the early part of that year as well. Today, we're going to give you my predictions on some of the top trades we're going to see over the coming months, and that's coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss today. We're going to make some trade predictions. There's many top names out there that have been rumored to be traded, been heavily involved in the trade rumor mill for quite some time, but yet have yet to be moved. So today, we're going to do a little bit of a different style of video and make some predictions. Of course, we made some predictions a couple weeks back looking at teams that were making the playoffs versus not. We looked at who's in and who's out compared to last year. Today, we're going to do some trade predictions. We'll do some other predictions coming up ahead of the season here as well. So we're going to go over a lot of big names. I'm going to let you know where I think they're going to end up. This is going to be some of the stuff I think could happen between now and the beginning of the 25-26 season. Some of it could be in the early part of that season, and some of it could even drag on and end up happening closer to the trade deadline. And of course, these are just predictions from my part on deals that I think make some degree of sense here. So, certainly don't expect necessarily many of these to come true, but we'll see what happens. Now, obviously, getting started first, we're going to talk about Calgary Flame defenseman Rasmus Andersson. I think most people would agree, and there's a general consensus out there that this will be his final season in Calgary if he is not traded before the season begins. His time with the Flames is coming to an end, and he is a very highly likely player to get moved. We've heard about a couple of different teams that have been highly in the mix that he would consider signing an extension with. Now, if things drag on too long, the Flames may end up moving him to a different club, but the main teams that we've heard about would be Dallas and Vegas that he would sign an extension with. So we know Vegas, which is where I'm predicting he's going to end up, is going to be without their top right shot defenseman, Alex Pietrangelo. He's unlikely to play again. That's going to be a big blow to this team. We know Vegas has made other moves like adding Mitch Marner. I suspect they're going to be a really, really good team still, but they are going to have a big hole on the right side of their blue line. And we know that the interest is high in Andersson. We know he'd be willing to sign an extension there based on the rumors that we've heard before. I think Vegas is going to go out and find a way to make this happen. I mean, obviously the Calgary Flames are going to be looking for a decent return. Some of these trade packages I'm going to suggest they're not necessarily, I'm more confident, we'll say, in the prediction of where the player is going to be than what exactly the trade's going to look like. But I think if I'm Calgary, I'm looking at maybe a young defenseman like a Lucas Cormier. I know he may or may not get a lot of opportunity in Vegas. With the injuries and things to Pietrangelo and the fact he's not going to be there, if they don't make a big trade and bring in another veteran, then he should get more of a chance. But I think he's a pretty smooth skater, a good puck mover. I think he's got some good offensive skills. He's done relatively well in the American Hockey League, and he's due for an opportunity to get an extended look in the NHL. So to me, if Vegas is going to make a trade for a veteran, if I'm a team like Calgary, I want him included. I think maybe a forward, maybe like a Brett Howden or somebody might be needed as well. From a financial standpoint, it might be a player that could help the middle six part of the Calgary Flames lineup as well. So maybe not exactly that, but some kind of package involving around Cormier and Howden, I think would be a decent return for Andersson. There could be a pick in there as well. But I do think that the Vegas Golden Knights is going to be the ultimate destination here for where Rasmus Andersson ends up. Now, we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins extensively today. The first one we'll touch on is Bryan Rust. Now, we know there's no shortage of interest in this player. He's got term on his contract, really pretty fair deal for what he gives you. 25, 30 goals multiple times, got lots of playoff experience, Stanley Cups to his resume. This guy's used to playing a lot with Sidney Crosby, so he can play a top-line role. I really think there's lots to like about this game, and for a team that's, getting close and, needs somebody to help kind of get them over the top, we'll say, he could be the perfect kind of candidate to do that. So that's why I'm predicting that Bryan Rust is going to end up with the Edmonton Oilers. I think he could be a great complementary piece that either can play with McDavid or Draisaitl either way. and can certainly still put the puck in the net with a lot of authority here. So to me, the struggle here, though, is going to be what is the return package? What do the Penguins get for, a veteran player like Russ? We've heard numerous times that Kyle Dubas is not going to give these guys away, right? So I do wonder with the Oilers. Obviously, they got Matt Savoy and they've got Ike Howard coming in. If one of those guys isn't working out, do they, at least not working out very quickly, because we know they're desperate to win right away? Would they consider doing that? I mean, I would think that they might want to steer away from those guys if you can. The problem is that Edmonton doesn't have a lot of high end, decent prospects that they can really move. They already traded Sam O'Reilly to get Howard. So if this is the case, they might have to be more of a futures package of picks. You're looking at maybe 2027, 2028 first round or something to those degrees. But I do see Edmonton doing everything they can to get Rust. I think he's a great fit there. It's just going to be challenging, and I don't know exactly what the package will look like. But it's going to be challenging for sure. Now, the other Penguin I want to talk about is Rickard Rakell. We're also going to touch on Erik Karlsson here in a few minutes too. Rickard Rakell, I can see maybe ending up in another Canadian market, and I think he'd be a great fit for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, Rickard Rakell is not necessarily going to be he's not going to be a Mitch Marner replacement, which ultimately I know was a lot of people are looking at. They're saying, okay, Marner's out. They brought in a bunch of these other guys like Dakota Joshua and Michelli, and they got Nick Waugh in a trade with Vegas for Marner. But, ultimately, there's a lot of skill missing there. Even if you add up all their points that they put up together last year, the three of them on their old teams, they still aren't going to come, and surpass what Marner did. So, Rickard Rakell's a pretty decent playmaking winger. He scored 30 before. Again, used to playing with high-end talent. Like I said, he can be good at both ends of the ice. I think he can be good playmaking winger as well as goal scorer. Like, to me, he's just a really versatile player that you can put in a lot of spots. And I think a player like Nick Robertson would be looking for more of an opportunity. I know he just signed a 1-year contract with the Leafs, but they still seem to be reluctant to really give him more of a chance. So I don't know that he's really going to be a player that fits long-term with Craig Berube. I think a deal with their old pal Kyle Dubas in Pittsburgh for a player that, in Robertson, he's very familiar with. They might have to throw something else in there. I'm looking at probably a mid-round pick. And then, the Penguins get a player in Robertson who's a 14, 15 goal scorer right now, another draft pick, and then Rickard Rakell goes to Toronto. Now, right now, the asking price is probably higher than that as well. They may have to throw something else in too, but I don't know that they're going to get Easton Cowan or Ben Danford or anybody out of the Leafs for this player, but I do think he'd be a great complementary piece to kind of round things out. We know the Leafs would like to add another top 6 guy, and to me, he's just one of those players that can fit in a variety of spots and is a good contract for what he provides. So to me, I think that's something that makes sense to see. Now, going to another Canadian team, I can see the Ottawa Senators making an addition. This is going to be, to me, more likely during the season than it would be before. But I'm going to predict a trade between the Senators and the Seattle Kraken where the Senators pick up Jared McCann. I think Jared McCann could be a terrific upgrade for the Ottawa Senators and their top 6. We know they got Giroux coming back, who's going to be motivated to outproduce last year's numbers. You get Timmy and Brady, who's looking to continue building upon, great young careers. You've got Dylan Cousins and Drake Batherson. The hole that's in question here is going to be, between Giroux and Fabian Zetterlund. Can they round out that top 6, or is there going to be a need, right? And that's why I think Ottawa might go out and make a move to improve their overall depth. I mean, you have a guy like Ridley Gregg could slide up there as well, but I know through the stretch run of last year, getting down to the final 20 games and into the playoffs, they really liked that line with Gregg, with Pinto, and Amadio on the third line. So, if they're able to leave that line together and solidify the top 6, maybe a guy like David Perron ends up sliding down, or does Zetterlund slide down? There's lots of options there. I mean, or maybe they may even have to move a contract to Seattle in that kind of deal. But McCann, to me, is a former 40-goal guy. Even if he hits 25, 30, I don't think that this is a trade we see before the season. I just think if the Sens are not getting enough production out of the top 6 in the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season, and Seattle's still looking to move this guy, he's only making $5.5 million. I think he could be a player that they can get for a decent price tag. They'd probably have to give up something off the roster, but it's unclear exactly what that might be. I don't think they would move Fabian Zetterlund, but they could. I mean, it might be hard to do, but including a player like a David Perron, which might be tricky to do as well. The other thing with Perron, he also had an off year last year because of a lot of stuff off the ice with family and issues with a newborn and all that. So I mean, we're going to cut Perron some slack there as well, but he is getting another year older as well. Obviously, Ottawa does have some young players that might be intriguing that I know they would be willing to part with. But what exactly the cost would be, looking at maybe a young defenseman like Max Gannett, who's kind of boxed out of getting a chance in Ottawa. If former first-rounder Tyler Boucher had a good start to the year, would they be intrigued in him at all as a reclamation project? You're looking at some picks. Obviously, Ottawa doesn't have a first-rounder next year, so that's out of the question. But I think even if they need to include something on the roster, to me it makes sense to try to upgrade that second line if what they have is not giving them enough. Now, before the season starts in September, the belief is we're going to see the Montreal Canadiens move the Carey Price contract. Another time I'm going to bring up the Penguins. I think, especially if they start moving out some of these other players, they're going to need salary anyways. So to me, Carey Price to Pittsburgh makes a ton of sense. Obviously, Montreal needs the cap space. That way they don't have to operate in a long-term injury reserve. We know he's got a bonus being paid out in September. And then after that, it's pretty low cost for any team to kind of carry and maintain that contract. So it's widely expected that is the time we're going to see a move. So I think that's pretty much a no-brainer. The only real prediction part here is where it goes. Of course, the other possibility is it could go to a team like the Sharks. And of course, we wonder if Montreal is going to have to add something to this, or could this be a scenario where they need to get to the salary floor if they trade off a bunch of enough money that it might not cost Montreal a whole lot. A lot of it's going to depend on what other moves teams like Pittsburgh makes with some of their veterans that they're looking to move out too, right? So we'll see. Even if they have to add a sweetener, Montreal has lots of picks and prospects that they don't have any issue doing something like that. But I can see that the Penguins picking up the Price contract. Now we're also going to predict a trade that's going to be I'm going to say a 3-way deal between Pittsburgh, Dallas, and Carolina. And it's going to involve some big names. So we know that Erik Karlsson's been heavily rumored to be on the move. We've heard lots about Jason Robertson. And, well, we've heard, the Dallas Stars are looking for cap space if they do move Robertson. So here's kind of what I think this could play out like. I think Erik Karlsson makes a lot of sense for really two teams. I think Dallas and Carolina are the main teams where he could logistically go to. So in this 3-way trade, the Dallas Stars send Jason Robertson to Carolina, and I would suspect after they went through with Mikko Rantanen that they're going to want an extension in place. So that would probably be a discussion point. But Carolina would get Robertson. Dallas would get Erik Karlsson. So, of course, Pittsburgh and Dallas both lose a big piece there. And then the Penguins, in return, of course, they obviously need to get something in return as well. And same thing here with Dallas. So with the Dallas Stars, would get Karlsson, and they'd probably get something else from the Carolina Hurricanes. You're probably looking at some kind of a pick or prospect. And then the Penguins, I think, would be looking for a couple of pieces here. I think maybe a player like Liam Bichsel out of Dallas would make sense. Maybe a Bradley Nadeau out of Carolina. So I think they could get a good haul of picks and prospects between these two teams. So Erik Karlsson will go to the Stars. Jason Robertson will go to the Canes. And then the Penguins basically get picks and prospects from a combination of both clubs. I think Robertson would be a great fit with the Carolina Hurricanes. I think Erik Karlsson would be a great fit with the Dallas Stars. And I think it changes up the Dallas mix here a little bit as well. And then the Penguins get a bunch of futures to continue their rebuild. Might seem complicated to some, maybe not be the absolute perfect fit, but I like this trade for all teams. I also think there's a possibility we could see a three-way trade between the Buffalo Sabres, the Vancouver Canucks, and the Minnesota Wild. So like I said, we just discussed what a three-way deal between Dallas, Carolina, and Pittsburgh. Next one I have up here, Buffalo, Vancouver, Minnesota, where the Vancouver Canucks get Josh Norris from Buffalo. The Buffalo Sabres get Marco Rossi from the Minnesota Wild. And the Minnesota Wild get Philip Hedl plus picks and prospects as well from combination of Buffalo or Vancouver. So you're looking at Rossi, essentially would go from Minnesota to the Buffalo. Norris would go from Buffalo to Vancouver, and then Hedl and a prospect would go to Minnesota. I mean, ultimately we know the Wild want to trade Rossi because they don't like the contract demand. They want a different kind of centerman. Well, ultimately, Hedl is a different kind of centerman. Yes, he's had his injury issues, but he does have a very different style of play, very different size. I wonder if Minnesota would like Hedl better than Rossi in that sense. I've talked about Norris not really, I don't think he's going to be a great fit or be happy in Buffalo. And I think that the Sabres have been a team linked to Rossi as well. I think the Canucks, who we know were in on Norris before he got traded from Ottawa to Buffalo, great buddies with Quinn Hughes, and a great hockey player that would really solidify their number 2 center spot. So to me, I think Norris is a big upgrade down the middle for Vancouver. Like I said, it also helps keep the captain happy as well, bringing one of his best friends. Marco Rossi gets out of Minnesota, gets the contract he wants from the Buffalo Sabres. So now the Sabres have a different look down the middle as well, especially where they've been playing Tage Thompson more on the wing. And then the Wild get Hedl and some other smaller futures to help with their center spot after trading Rossi. So to me, again, I like this trade for all sides. I really think it has a good possibility of working out. The last trade I want to discuss here as well, I do think as the season gets started and moves along, we're going to see frustration again from Simon Nemec out of New Jersey, and I do think they're ultimately going to be forced with themselves to make a trade, and I think I see him going to the Nashville Predators. So Nemec to Nashville for some kind of a package, starting with Luke Evangelista, and probably have to add something else as well, whether it be a pick or another prospect or something. But I think Nemec is going to be finding his way out of New Jersey this year. I don't think the Devils really want to do it, but I think they're going to be in a situation where, you know, similar to what Buffalo was with Peterka, and Nemec is going to be like, listen, I want out of here. I'm not getting the opportunity, and I think they can get an opportunity to swap him for some other pieces. And the Devils will probably make some other moves here as well. But yeah, I think Nemec to Nashville, to me, makes sense from Nashville's perspective. If New Jersey can help it, then yeah, if they can find an opportunity to play him and make him happy and keep him in the mix, that probably would be best. I'm just not convinced at this point that it's going to happen. And I can understand why, with his pedigree, where he was drafted and everything, why he may be looking for more of a chance. So let me know what you think of these trade predictions in the comments. We'll discuss further. Of course, if you have any other trade predictions you think are reasonable that you want to discuss, leave that down in the comments here as well. This is just for fun and entertainment purposes, so make sure don't be too brutal here on the predictions. If you don't like or don't like them or you disagree, that's totally fine. Leave your comments. Let me know what you think does make sense, and we can talk about it further and kind of have a general consensus here what the community thinks as a whole, well, what we're going to see in the next few months here leading to the NHL season. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.